Hi, and thanks for watching. Why take up Tai Chi? This is a question that I want to look at in this video. We'll look at it from several practical angles, and at the same time we will talk about a couple other traditions that are related to Tai Chi so that we can help you find a practice that is going to be well suited to you and your interests. So most people are familiar with at least the general shape of Tai Chi. It's a slow meditative practice. It's usually done in groups, often done in a park, and something where it has its roots in Chinese culture and in Chinese martial arts. And if you are looking for a practice that you can start today, very little in the way of upfront costs, that you can practice for years and years and continue to learn and benefit from, then yes, I think Tai Chi is a practice worth considering. That said, we'll look at a few questions that people often have in their minds about the practice and see if we can answer some of those questions and concerns. First one being, well, it looks kind of slow. Maybe it's too slow for me. That's a good question. It can be done, it is usually done slow. But keep in mind that within the family of Tai Chi, there are many different styles. And within those different styles, even amongst teachers, there's variations in how the practice is taught. So, for example, if we look at from one end to the other, from the most slow and meditative of the practices, at least that I'm familiar with, Yang style Tai Chi, the one that's very common in North America, and we compare it to one that is much more dynamic, the new frame version of Chen style Tai Chi, we get to see a little bit of the range of dynamic quality that is possible within a Tai Chi practice. So first is Yang style Tai Chi. So if we compare that to something like Chen style Tai Chi, this is the difference between those two. So as you can see, they have a few qualities that are similar in terms of a sequence with slow movement, but the degree of dynamicism and speed is quite different. So this means if you're interested in Tai Chi, you can probably find somewhere in there amongst the different styles something that is well suited to your interests and abilities. Another question about Tai Chi is, well, what if it's too complicated? What if there's too much to memorize? One of the basic training techniques of Chen style Tai Chi, or of any style of Tai Chi, is learning a sequence. And learning the sequence requires learning movements that are linked from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Some of the sequences are around 18 moves, some of them are, depending on how you count it, 25 movements, up to 108 movements. So some of the sequences are quite long. And of course, the memory work is part of the practice. Now, if you're interested in something that has less of that demand, then there's a related practice, a health-based practice called Qigong, which has very much the same sort of quality as movement as Tai Chi, but the movements tend to be simpler. The movements tend to be with more repetition, and the routines tend to be shorter. Also, the movements tend to be quite always returning to the same posture. So if it's a movement that starts at this posture, for example, there's a movement coming through. Ending pretty much where we started. A second move will come from here, moving into another posture. And again, coming back to a neutral position. So in terms of the movements, there's much less in the way of memory work, and there's much less in the way of footwork compared to Tai Chi practice. So for that concern, in terms of the complexity of the movements, Qigong is a practice that might be of interest. Another question is, will Tai Chi help me with my sore knees and hips and back and shoulders? I'll answer that with a qualified yes. It's qualified because I know people who have injured themselves or made their joint problem worse with the improper practice of Tai Chi. It's worth keeping in mind that the origin of Tai Chi is not as a therapeutic practice. And it can be applied as a therapeutic practice, but it needs to be applied in the right conditions and with the right instruction and feedback. So it can be done, if it's done correctly, it can be helpful for the joints because it is a slow movement that has a transfer of weight forward and back, side to side. But it needs to be done carefully and correctly. If your condition is one where gentle exercise is appropriate and beneficial, then Tai Chi, properly practiced, can actually be quite helpful. But it is only with those conditions that I mentioned, those considerations that I mentioned, that it will be helpful for you. Another question is, what if I'm an experienced martial artist and I want to get an understanding of this soft style or internal style of martial art? Is Tai Chi something that I should take up? I'll say yes. Keep in mind two things. First thing is that the process, the learning process, the training process of Tai Chi with cultivating this idea of internal power is not a technique, it's a training process that takes time. So you have to be willing to try and learn the approach and the methods, training methods of Tai Chi for more than just a week or two or a month to grasp what is going on, for your body to be able to be reconditioned to a point where the movements and their applications, potential applications, start to make sense. And the second thing that can make it difficult making that transition from an external style to a style like Tai Chi is that most of the techniques and applications, the martial aspects, are based a lot on grappling techniques. So if you are familiar with martial art that emphasizes hitting or striking and kicking, then it'll be hard to wrap your head around some of the movements and what they might mean. But still, with those thoughts in mind, Tai Chi is an excellent choice in terms of exploring this soft style of martial art, especially Chen style Tai Chi, which retains a lot of the martial character and flavor. But again, it still requires the proper instruction, the proper approach from the class and the instructor. A related internal style of martial art, there's internal related martial arts such as Xingyi and Bagua that are also worth considering. I will show you just Xingyi, I'll show you Bagua later, because at this point is worth demonstrating because it has a very, at least at the beginning training sessions, the early part of the training, the movements are very direct, they're very upright, and they're very similar to some of the external styles, such as some of the karate styles. So a short, quick demonstration of Xingyi. So again, not slow, very direct with straightforward, clear techniques, striking techniques, and all of it based off of midline techniques. So often this makes it easier for people familiar with external styles to relate to, but keep in mind that the power generation and the understanding within the applications is still an internal style. So there's still internal style training methods and understandings of how the power is generated. So Xingyi is also a good practice to investigate. Second last question is, what if I'm interested in Asian philosophy and I really want to grasp this idea of Qi? Is Tai Chi something I should take up? I'd say yes, absolutely. Keep in mind that it has developed and been influenced by Taoism and even Confucianism and Buddhism, but it is not, as far as I'm concerned, a practice that's related directly to those philosophies. But because people who are interested in Chinese thought tend to be very much in their head, any practice that brings them into their body is a good one, and especially one that comes from the culture that they're interested in getting a further familiarity with. I strongly believe that the more context you have, the deeper or more nuanced your understanding of any one thing will be. And so in the same way that for people interested in the physical practice of Tai Chi, understanding some of the Asian philosophies is very useful. In reverse, people interested in the Asian philosophies, understanding the physical practices that are related and influenced by these thoughts will help broaden your understanding of the thinking and thoughts from China. And then the last question is, what if you are looking for something that has enough challenge in terms of movement and complexity of movement and dynamic qualities of movement? Is Tai Chi something you should take up? And again, I will say yes, that it is worth considering and investigating Tai Chi. As I said at the beginning, there are many different styles, but even something which looks straightforward and simple, such as the Yang style Tai Chi, which has outward appearance of being very clear and very simple, actually has quite a bit of internal dynamic that is quite nuanced. It's just harder to see. In contrast, as you saw before, Chen style Tai Chi, especially New Frame, has much more of that explicit, complicated movement and challenge that comes too. And if you're looking for something that is even a notch up in terms of complexity and dynamic quality, I mentioned earlier the related internal styles of martial art. This one specifically, Bagua. Xingyi and Bagua are often talked about as a pair, in part because the training for Xingyi, the one we saw earlier, is always done in a straight line. In contrast, the one I'm going to demonstrate next, Bagua, the training is always done in a circle with the movements requiring a good deal of rotation and dynamic quality. So, Bagua. So again, as you can see, it is a step up in terms of the detail and complexity within the footwork, within the movements themselves, and how the power is generated and transferred through the body. So to sum up, if you are looking for a practice that has very low startup costs that you can start right away, that you can practice and continue to benefit from for years and years and years to come, then yes, you should look at Tai Chi. I hope with this video it has given you an understanding, at least a taste, of some of the variation and variety that is available to you within the practice of Tai Chi, as well as with the related practices such as the Qigong, which is the more meditative, easier to remember practice, as well as the related practices of the internal styles of martial art, the Xingyi, which is driving in a straight line, and the Bagua, which is based around walking in a circle. So thank you for watching. Keep training, keep practicing, and take care.